Hello, everybody. This is Gary. Today is Saturday, May 30th, 2020. It is 2:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States in Rochester, New York, in the USA. And this is my coping with schizophrenia entry for today. Um, Today's a pretty good day. I'm not having much paranoia, not very many hallucinations or delusions, not particularly depressed about anything, um, not particularly upset about anything. Um, I'm at my baseline, I would guess you would call it, for my paranoia and my hallucinations. They're always there to some degree. Um, Anxiety is always there to some degree. Depression is always there to some degree. But my baseline is what I'm used to every day without feeling like I'm in a state of emergency, mentally speaking. Um, there's always some degree of paranoia. There's always some degree of me looking over my shoulder when I'm walking outside. Um, there's always some degree of hearing voices. There's always some degree of depression. Um, I wanted to point out that having a mental illness and watching the news can be very depressing. Um, it's bad enough to have personal problems related to mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, or psychosis, and then throw on top of that the bad news that the world throws at you through television, through radio, through the internet, through YouTube. Um, the bad news that comes in can just add a burden to the people who are mentally ill. For example, if I'm hearing voices and I'm seeing things that aren't there, if I think I'm being followed, watching the news on TV or on YouTube, or watching the news or listening to the news on the radio, um, that can be very uh, depressing because it throws on top of the stress of having a mental illness like hallucinations and delusions. It throws on the prospect of the world being really scary and dangerous with coronavirus going on, with George Floyd being murdered by a police officer, with the riots breaking out all over the place. Um, that just adds stress to being mentally ill because it's hard for a mentally healthy person to deal with all the bullshit that comes through the internet, the news, politics, current events. Um, it's really very stressful to just sit there and watch the constant barrage of bad news, the constant barrage of news about disease, violence, people burning stores down, people looting, people screaming at each other, people throwing things at the police like rocks and bottles, and the police responding with tear gas and rubber bullets, and or the police withdraw completely, which happened in Minneapolis. The police were called back away from one of their police stations, and it was burnt to the ground. Um, that's not very encouraging. If the police are going to back off like that, so their own police station can be burned down, there's something seriously wrong with that, and it makes it hard to have faith in police anywhere if they're faced with that kind of thing. I mean, Rochester, New York, right now, it isn't yet having any riots or looting, but if it did, would the Rochester Police Department be ordered to fall back and just let people run amok and loot stores and burn shit and set things on fire and tear things down? Um, I think that's a legitimate question. Um, there's no doubt that George Floyd was murdered by a police officer who stuck his knee into George Floyd's neck while he was on the ground and cut off his ability to breathe and speak. Um, that police officer has been arrested. He's been charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter, um, and he should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The other three officers, as I understand it, are facing possible criminal charges as well. The investigation is still going on, as far as I know, with the other three police officers that were there. Um, but all this bad news, all this violence, all this disease, all this isolation because of COVID-19, coronavirus, just adds to the stress of being mentally ill. It can even cause mental illness, I suppose, if you're not predisposed to depression and anxiety. You might get it after losing your job because of coronavirus, getting laid off because of coronavirus, ending up on unemployment because of coronavirus. Um, so the coronavirus epidemic by itself can cause mental health problems. I heard on the news that throughout the United States, there's been a 20% increase in prescriptions for antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. And I'm one of those. My doctor gave me a prescription for Klonopin to help deal with my anxiety over everything that's going on in my life and in the world in general. Um, Speaking of which, maybe I kind of strayed from the topic. My psychiatrist is leaving sometimes next month, so I will be getting a new psychiatrist, which is hard. You work with somebody for a year, but they're only a resident, so they have to move on to their next level of training as a physician, as a psychiatrist. Um, so I will be getting a new psychiatrist. I don't know who that is yet. Um, let's just wait and see what pops up and who my new psychiatrist will be. But my psychiatrist put me on Klonopin, which can be a dangerous drug. If you take it every day, say for 4 weeks, say at 1 milligram a day, and then you abruptly stop it, you could go through withdrawals and seizures and even conceivably die from it. But I'm not taking Klonopin every single day. I've only been given 6 pills for the next 2 weeks at half a milligram in each tablet. So I'm only allowed 3 pills per week, not per day, but per week for the next 2 weeks until I see my psychiatrist on the 11th of June. Up until this point, for the past 2.5 months, I've been talking to my psychiatrist over the phone, but we agreed that my next meeting with him is going to be in person because it will be my last visit with him. He gave me the option of having our last appointment together either be on the phone or in person. I chose to do it in person because I think it's just more appropriate to see somebody face to face before you stop working with them and have a face to face conversation for about a half hour or so in the doctor's office just to discuss what's going on with him leaving, my medications, who my new psychiatrist is going to be, how do I set up a new appointment with that new psychiatrist. It's all important, and I want to do that kind of stuff in person. I want to say goodbye in person. I don't want my last psychiatric appointment to be with the doctor over the phone. I speak to him for 15 minutes, then I hang up the phone and I never hear from him again. I would rather meet with him in person and just close everything out while we're sitting there talking to each other face to face. We could have done phone, or not phone visits, but teleconferencing visits, and they wanted me to use Zoom to do that. I don't know how to use Zoom. I have no idea how I would arrange a conversation with my psychiatrist at the clinic connected to my computer. I don't even have a Zoom account, or if I do, I've never used it, and I don't know how to use it. So it's weird. I never had a teleconferencing visit with my psychiatrist or my primary care doctor for that matter. I've been meeting with my primary care doctor by telephone as well. I have an appointment, I believe, on July 15th with my primary care nurse practitioner. I'm not sure if that visit's going to be over the phone or in person. I'm going to ask that it be in person because most of the country's trying to open up again after this coronavirus thing. And I think my mental health clinic, as well as my primary care physician's clinic, will start taking people again and seeing them in person as long as there's no symptoms of coronavirus or COVID-19 or flu-like symptoms or anything like that. They do ask that if we have an appointment in person, that we look at ourselves and see if we have any symptoms of coronavirus or flu-like symptoms, headaches, fever, sore throat, difficulty breathing, dry cough, aches and pains, difficulty breathing, all of those things. If you have those things, it's best to stay home for your protection and the protection of other people who are vulnerable. I consider myself to be vulnerable to coronavirus because I'm a heavy smoker, which makes my lungs weaker, which makes it easier for COVID-19 to attack my lungs because my lungs are not as healthy as they should be, and I believe they would be more prone to getting into a pneumonia type infection in my lungs. Um, so um, I think that I would be at a higher risk of getting COVID-19. Whenever I go out, I wear a mask, not for my protection, but for other people's protection. Because I do have a heavy cough, but that's from smoking cigarettes. Nonetheless, if I was carrying COVID-19 without knowing it, and I was coughing because I was smoking, I might spread germs to other people, including the coronavirus. So whenever I go outside, I always wear a mask, especially if I'm in an enclosed place like a store or a mental health clinic or my physician's clinic. So that's all for now. I mean, there's not much else going on. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Press the notification bell so you know when I put out new videos. Because even if you're subscribed to my channel, you might not know when I put out a new video with the way YouTube operates. I don't ask for money to do these videos, but if you want to help my channel out, share my videos on social media and press the like button. And if you have any ideas you want me to do for a video, leave them in the comment section.